The young man washing his truck had a friend inside the truck who made a phone call. And he called some friends and said, "Hey, they're picking on our buddy." And immediately, 4 other people showed up. Let me introduce you to them. Wesley Davis II, who was 18. Robert Friedrichs, who was 17. Ethan Simmons, who's 18. They were all in the same car. Then there was Dalton Creech. Dalton Creech is the only one from Lakeland. He was driven there by his girlfriend, Caitlin. By this time, our victim is walking north on the sidewalk on Highway 37 in Mulberry. He's walking back toward his house. He's not hit anyone. He's not started an argument or a fight. And these guys rush to him. Now, Ethan, he takes his shirt and his shoes off when he first arrives. And for those that may not understand that, in Polk County world, that means we're fixing to fight. So they approach our victim, Juan Ramos Sr., who is intoxicated, and start talking trash to him. And he keeps saying, "I'm 13, I'm 13. And then he notices that one of the young men is wearing a chain. He said, "Hey, we have something in common." Well, immediately, Robert, who's 17, hits our victim and knocks him out cold. Well, the good news is, instead of falling on the sidewalk or the road, he fell on the grass, or the injuries would have been much worse. And then they jumped on him like a bunch of pack animals and began to beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him. Our witness, Caitlin, is videoing this and tells them she's got it. I got it. I got it. Well, Caitlin gets home, and her mother sees this, and her mother says, "Time out. You're calling the sheriff's office. You're reporting this. Great going, Mom. You made a witness out of Caitlin." In the meantime, we get called as well. When our victim stumbles home, he refuses to cooperate. He's afraid. He's on probation, and he's not supposed to be drinking, and he's afraid he's in trouble. So he would not cooperate. His wife was able to talk sense into him by the next morning and to get him to cooperate with us in the investigation because he had been severely beaten. He was beaten so bad. You might ask, well, how bad was he beaten? How about a broken jaw, for starters? How about his teeth are all knocked loose? How about, in addition to that, he's got lacerations to his orbital sockets. He's got swelling on his torso. He's got a broken nose. All because they jumped on him and beat him without mercy. Now finally, Dalton got Wesley off. Wesley was the one pounding him in the face at the end. But they were stomping him in the groin, in the shoulder, in the neck, in the torso. It is disgusting. It is sickening. I'll tell you something else that's shocking about all of this. None of these kids had a criminal record at all. But they went from no criminal record to charges such as attempted second-degree murder, inciting to riot, that's 3 or more people in a violent public disturbance. There was racist speech by Dalton. Caitlin continues to tell Dalton, you'll see in the video, "You're military, you're military." Well, he's not in the military. but he wanted to go in the military. So Caitlin, although he was inciting the event, he was encouraging the event, he was encouraging the beatdown after it occurred, he never threw a punch because Caitlin told him not to. But inciting to riot and encouraging and advancing that pack mentality got him a felony of the 2nd degree. I don't believe the military wants him. So it's important to understand you can go from no criminal record to a very serious, violent criminal record in the blink of an eye. Now, the adults, the two 18-year-olds and the 19-year-old are still in the county jail waiting on first appearance. The 17-year-old has been moved to custody from the juvenile bookend because of the points. We're going to request that the state attorney file adult charges on him as well. This was not a childish act. But let's review the video before I ask you if you have any further questions, because the video may create some questions. Now, this is when they ran him down on the sidewalk, minding his own business. Caitlin is taking the video. They all know they're being videoed. If that's not stupid gone to seed, I don't know what is. They're bowing up. They're pushing him. He's showing them his tattoos that he's MS-13. That's what he said. And the guy on the left, you'll see in a minute, knocks him out. And once he's hit, he goes down and he doesn't move after that. He's out. He's out, and the beating and the beating and the kicking and the stomping and the encouraging them to continue to beat goes on and on and on. That's not going to happen in this county. We're not going to allow that. Juan is still in intensive care at the hospital. And they're in the county jail. And that's where they need to stay. It's important to understand, in a free society, we don't treat people like that. That conduct's not acceptable in Polk County. That's what animals do, and they're not animals, even though their behavior was. Any questions?
Chairman, might this be considered a hate crime at all? You said there were some slurs and things used.
You know, the case is still under an investigation about whether or not it's a hate crime, but when you look to see that our victim, yes, he was Hispanic. The person he was trying to talk to was Hispanic. And there was mostly just cussing. It wasn't, I'm beating you up because you're Hispanic. They were beating him up because he had tried to have a conversation in a drunken stupor with another Hispanic young man. So the core of the event was not racist, and they didn't make any statements about, we're going to beat you up because of your race. This was strictly a retaliation for David telling them that their friend who was washing his truck was being picked on. And as you can see from another video that we'll make available to you, he tried to talk to him. He was never up in his face. He never pushed him. He never touched him. He never threatened him. We have no evidence to that. So it's not out of the question. We still have witnesses to talk to, but we're not comfortable filing the hate crime at this point in the investigation. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. It's very important to remember this is Mother's Day. If your mother is still alive, make sure you hug her and give her a kiss. I wish mine was alive so I could hug her and give her a kiss. If not, go to the graveyard and thank her for raising a wonderful child. See you later.
Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd this afternoon as we begin Florida Live. Good afternoon to you, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon live on Fox Local, fox13news.com, fox35orlando.com, and on YouTube. That was Sheriff Grady Judd talking about the arrests of 4 teenagers in connection with a brutal beating of a man from Mulberry. I can show you the mugshots of those suspects. 3 of the 4, just to recap those suspects, 3 of the 4, just to recap what the sheriff was talking about. These are Ethan Ryan Simmons, an 18-year-old from Mulberry, Wesley Austin Davis II, an 18-year-old from Mulberry, and Dalton Ivory Creech, a 19-year-old from Lakeland. Should note that a 17-year-old was also arrested and charged in this. We're not identifying him at this time, although the sheriff's office says they are requesting that adult charges be filed against him because he said this was not the act of a child. They are accused in the beating of a Mulberry man who they say was bothering an autistic friend of theirs, that they say they were standing up for him. The sheriff said there is no evidence that the man who you saw pictures of, if you were watching the news conference, was doing anything to bother them beyond striking up a conversation with them. But a 35-year-old man hospitalized in the ICU with a number of serious injuries to his face, a broken nose, a broken jaw, cuts, swelling, all of those things. And the sheriff showing just moments ago video as this incident was caught on cell phone video of this happening late Monday night. So again, 4 teenagers arrested in this beating, 3 of them, including Simmons and Davis, who you see on the left and in the middle there, and that 17-year-old who's accused of throwing the first punch. All 3 of them are charged with second-degree attempted murder. So very serious charges from this incident. We have a lot of other things to get to as well in this next hour. Governor Ron DeSantis hosting a property tax roundtable as the discussions about ways to move forward with eliminating those property taxes continue. We'll check in on that in a little bit. We're also going to hear from the brother of Pope Leo XIV, who lives in Florida. We'll have more on that coming up in just a few minutes, but we begin today with a budget blow-up and more drama in Tallahassee ahead of the return, or the expected and scheduled return of lawmakers next week. This is because of a tough situation, really getting tougher when it comes to these budget negotiations and important work that has to be done before the end of June, and steps backward in negotiations now. Earlier this afternoon, just a little bit ago, I spoke with Peter Schorsch from Florida Politics about this situation and where things go from here as the drama ramps up in Tallahassee.
Yeah, it's really bad. The acrimony between the Senate President, Ben Albritton, and the House Speaker, Danny Perez, it's at a level that I have not seen before in all my years following the legislature. I'm trying to recall how bad it's gotten, and I can't find a precedent for it. There is a lot of distrust. There's a lot of talk about this person lied, that person lied. Right now, I don't know the way forward, and I don't think they know the way forward. It just looks like the Senate is not going to agree to the House's tax cuts, and the House is not going to take up the Senate President's key priority, a plan called Rural Renaissance. So they're at loggerheads now. The thing is blown up. I would like to say cooler heads prevail, but I said that last week, and I said that the week before. I'm waiting for the adults in the room to take over.
So, Peter, how did we get here? How did we get to where it is this bad?
Well, the House really believes that spending is out of control. They're not doging it like they are in D.C., but they went and they looked at the governor's agencies, and they found, there was missing cars. There was $160 million in healthcare funding that couldn't be accounted for. There were all these things. And so the House said, hey, wait a second. We've been flush for a while. We spent a lot during the pandemic. Why don't we start taking it in a little bit? And so they proposed basically reducing the tax rate by 0.5%. The Senate likes to spend a little bit more. It's got they've got bigger constituencies. And so they are holding out for, they're saying that they want almost $4 billion more in recurring spending than the House. So that's a pretty big chasm. They made a deal right before session ended on day 60, where they were going to do a little bit of tax cuts and they were going to do a little bit of the Senate president's rural renaissance plan. But then the governor, Ron DeSantis, came in this week and said he would veto any of the proposals by the House. And so at that point, the Senate said, hey, wait, why are we even going to go through this process, wasting our time if the governor's going to just back out? The House said, hey, we had a deal. You're now breaking your word. And so we're now at the loggerheads that we find ourselves in.
Is that what this comes down to then, that veto threat from the governor? Do you think that's really was kind of the final straw here?
Yeah, that's what, overturned the apple cart. And I'm not blaming the governor for it. He's been pretty clear that he didn't like the idea of a sales tax cut, because he says that benefits all of the 100 million tourists that come to Florida, all the part-time residents, et cetera. He wants property tax relief. He wants property taxes to go away and basically reconfigure how we pay for things at the local level. All of that being said, the governor coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to, veto your budget. It really does make it a academic exercise to go through that budget process, to hash out the over $112 billion that they wanted to spend. So right now, they don't have a big, what we call a top line number. Both the House and the Senate have different top line numbers. The House is now going so far as to say, hey, wait, we'll get rid of our tax cuts. You're not going to get your priority, the rural renaissance. Let's just go back to where we were. But the Senate's not even going to that at this point. So they're not, I say it's like a David Mamet play. They're not even talking about yet.
And so, like you said, that leaves a lot still up in the air. We've seen the memos from the leadership of the chambers, basically not really saying when things will even kind of continue or to that next step.
No, we know this. We know that the current session has been extended, and both the House and the Senate have to agree to it, to June 6th. The House wants to extend to June 30th when a budget needs to be in place by. The Senate is saying that they think that they can get a deal by June 6th, so they're not interested in extending right now. There's talk that the governor, through, I think it's Article 3, my friend Gary Feinert from Politico, he pointed out that the governor can basically end the special session and then call them back into a budget special session. So we're really kind of testing the parliamentarian law that governs these things. June 6th, again, is when this is supposed to be done by. They have to have a budget. It's by June 30th. I don't remember this kind of, I don't want to say constitutional crisis, because it's not as serious as it would be when we say that at the national level, but I haven't seen these deadlines get blown like this before. I don't know who's going to back down here. I really don't.
It kind of seems like we're playing a game of chicken here.
Yeah, and again, the level of distrust. When the off the record conversations that I'm having with both sides of legislative leadership, it's not proper for television if I told you what they said, but it's a lot of the F word. There's a lot of SOBs. There's a lot of that. And so right now we're kind of, what happens in the legislature is eventually one of the future leaders, not the current House Speaker or the Senate President, somebody that's kind of designated to be the next Senate President or maybe the next House Speaker, they will sometimes be looked to. In this case, Jim Boyd for the Senate, Sam Garrison for the House. Maybe they have a different path forward, because this is really going to impact them more than it's going to impact the current legislature. The current legislature is going to be gone in a year and a half. Sam Garrison and Jim Boyd are the people that are going to have to kind of clean up this mess. So if there's any breakthrough, it may come from one of the designated leaders.
And Peter, what's the cost to the taxpayers of all this, of an extended session that's going to be dragging on for who knows how long?
Well, right now, as long as they're not traveling, it's not a serious expense. I'm a limited. I'll make the Republican argument and say that if they come up with these tax cuts and they keep spending down, there may actually be some savings for the taxpayers in the long run. But if they keep going into special session up in Tallahassee, I always see the estimates about that at about $50,000 to $60,000 a day when you count up all the travel, all the expenses. The real kind of pain for all of this is the uncertainty with the member schedule. They've got to vote. And, we have a part-time legislature. They're human beings. I know that, the budget chief, they had planned a cruise. I know that a senior member of the Senate has a very important surgery that they planned for the summer. These are human beings. They've got businesses back home. They've got families back home. And so the pressure on them to get a deal done is intense, especially from the people that they have to live with.
Yeah, and when you're talking about those plans, that's certainly not a good way to engender some goodwill at a time where it seems like that's pretty low already right now.
Yeah, and that's, again, I would have thought some cooler heads will prevail. I mean, I will say, it's Mother's Day weekend. Maybe some people will have kinder things to say to each other. The big issue right now is the House has said it's going up there Tuesday to Tallahassee to extend, and the Senate has said it's not doing that. So somebody's got to blink there. That's the first game of chicken that's going to come to a conclusion.
We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live, and joining me live now is Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay with our Tampa connection. Nancy, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Thanks for having me today on this Friday. As we know, most big stories across the world usually have some type of Florida connection, and the new Pope is no different, as we're learning that the new Pope's brother actually lives in Florida.
How cool is that?
Louis Prevost lives in Port Charlotte and said he was shocked and awed when he learned that his younger brother, Robert Prevost, was the new Pope. The brothers grew up in Chicago, and even at a young age, Louis said that he knew his brother was special. He said he used to tease him about becoming the Pope one day because he always had a holy way about him. Louis said he talks to his brother about 2 to 3 times a week, and just before the conclave, they discussed what could happen. His brother said he would accept the role if he got it, but added that it is God's will and that it is in God's hands. Louis did note that his brother's new role is bittersweet because he wonders if he'll actually be able to see him again, shake his hand, and hug him. He said that's because it's hard to see the Pope even if you are his brother. However, he added that he believes his brother is ready for the role and says he will be a great Pope. Fox 13's Kimberly Cuizon caught up with Louis Prevost earlier today, and we'll have more from her interview later on in the show. Garrett?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear from that. I mean, that is just, I'm having trouble even just wrapping my mind around that, for it to be someone a sibling of a future pope. And I love that you said they used to tease him about becoming the pope one day. Well, who has the last laugh now?
Yeah, exactly. And he said that, his brother just always had this holy way about him. And who knew that those teasings would actually become reality? But again, he said he is very happy for his brother and believes that he will be a great pope.
Yeah, that's really cool. Second story today here in our Tampa Connection, detectives in Hernando County trying to crack a cold case.
Yes, it was exactly 44 years ago today that Ricky Merrill and Dory Collier, they were actually murdered. So on May 9th, 1981, investigators say the pair were at the Hilltop Lounge on Broad Street in Brooksville. Around 1:30 in the morning, they told friends they were going to leave, but they would be right back. However, they never returned. About an hour later, so that's around 2:30 in the morning, the fire department was sent to a possible brush fire about a mile away from the Hilltop Lounge. It turned out to actually be a car fire, and Merrill and Collier's bodies were located inside that vehicle. Now, over the years, Fox 13 has talked to family members who said Brooksville was an extremely small town 4 decades ago and that somebody has to know something. The Hernando County Sheriff's Office actually inherited this cold case in 2018 when the Brooksville Police Department was disbanded. Detective George Lloydgren has been working to solve this case ever since. He said that a new look has helped find new witnesses to question and that the people who are possible suspects back in the 80s are still on his radar. But so far, nobody has been charged. Anybody with any information about the murders of Ricky Merrill and Dory Collier in Brooksville on May 9th, 1981, they are asked to call the Hernando County Sheriff's Office, or if they want to remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward, they are asked to call Hernando County Crime Stoppers. Garrett?
Well, Nancy, you and I have talked before about how, can only imagine what it's like for these family members to go so long in cases like this without answers, without knowing what's happened, without knowing who's responsible.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult. We talked to the siblings of Ricky Merrill and Dory Collier, and they said that it is so hard for them after all these years that they still don't know what happened to their loved ones, who is responsible for taking their loved one's life. I know Dory's sister, she told us that her sister will always be 20 years old in her mind. So that's because that's when she was killed. The family just wants some answers, as does the Hernando County Sheriff's Office, as to who is responsible for killing Ricky Merrill and Dory Collier.
Gosh, heartbreaking. And speaking of heartbreaking, a somber anniversary today, 45 years since the Sunshine Skyway disaster.
Yes, that's right. It was May 9th of 1980 that the MV Summit Venture hit one of the support beams on the bridge, causing it to plummet into the bay. 6 cars and a Greyhound bus fell 150 feet into the water, killing 35 people. Now, the new Sunshine Skyway Bridge opened in 1987 with numerous safety enhancements, such as large concrete barriers known as dolphins. Now, remaining sections of the old bridge were converted into the Skyway Fishing Pier State Park. That opened in 1994. In March, the National Transportation Safety Board included the Sunshine Skyway Bridge on its list of 68 bridges the agency wants to undergo vulnerability assessments. The NTSB's list is part of an effort to figure out if bridges built before 1991, when new safety standards were set, are at a risk of collapse if they should be hit by a vessel. However, the agency did emphasize that the bridges on the list do not face an immediate risk of collapsing. But yes, Garrett, today is definitely a somber anniversary for the Sunshine Skyway Bridge.
All right, well, Fox 13's Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection today.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We've talked a lot about property taxes lately, and today Governor Ron DeSantis held his second roundtable of the week looking at this issue. He was joined again by Senator Blaise Ngolea to talk about this. It was in Jacksonville, and he also had a couple of Jacksonville residents with him today to talk about their experience with property taxes. So in this clip, you're going to hear from Senator Ngolea about the history of homestead exemptions, the role that kind of plays in this, and then also a Jacksonville resident who is also a realtor who talks about the issues when it comes to qualifying for home loans and also the local housing market. So this is a portion of that roundtable discussion from Jacksonville earlier today.
We used to have a $25,000 homestead exemption. When that was originally enacted, that represented about 33% of your value of your home. So 33% was shielded from taxation. So in the 2000s, we saw an increase in property tax, an increase in home sales, increase in property values, and a corresponding increase in taxes. And the legislature's property taxes, the legislature's response was to give an additional homestead exemption. So what we have right now is the original $25,000 is exempt, the next $25,000 is taxed, and the next $25,000 after that is exempt, but we hold the school board portion of those property taxes exempt from that taxation. So when you blend it all together, it's about $39,000 is what your current homestead exemption is. Years ago, it was 33%. With the $39,000 property homestead exemption, it represents about 9%. So there's really no efficient way of shielding people from property taxes but for property tax reform, and that's what the governor is proposing. Right now, he's proposing a two-step program. One is to give people rebates off of their taxes right now and send rebate checks for people who've already sent in their tax bill. And that is just to bide the time until 2026 so we can put a constitutional amendment on the ballot and offer people substantial tax exemptions, property tax, homestead exemptions. Because without that, governments are going to continue to grow. Unless an outside force comes in, and this, you guys, the voters would be the outside force, says stop spending, they will continue to spend, they will continue to grow their budget. So, Governor, I applaud you and I thank you for, again, leading on an issue that all of our constituents want. We talked about this the other day. I did some town hall, some speaking at some events in my district, in the villages and in Hernando County. About 300 people there. When I asked them to raise their hand who wanted property tax relief, almost every single one did. So thank you for leading on this issue, Governor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Jordan, floor is yours.
No, he brought up a lot of the points that I kind of put in my notes to talk about today. When you're going to qualify for a loan, you know they're calculating your mortgage rate. Well, your mortgage, what you can afford is based on your income, and you can qualify based on a percentage of your income. But that rate, which we know interest rates are high right now, it's factored with property taxes, high insurance rate, and your mortgage rate. So it's, you know, disqualifying people that would otherwise be able to buy that property. So you're eliminating people that could potentially otherwise buy. So that's for the standard home buyer. And then, I mean, even with people that aren't homeowners, it actually affects, because if there's an investor that has a property that, let's say the bill goes from $5,000 to $10,000, he's going to pass that expense on to the tenant. You know, so you got people that are living paycheck to paycheck that now their rent has to go up because the person that owns that property is not going to become unprofitable. So he's got to pass that along to the tenant, and now they got to pay a higher rent. So it's affecting them as well.
Right. Okay. Janelle Flynn.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. I'm a longtime resident here of Jacksonville, Florida, born and raised. A number of years ago, I found myself in a divorce situation and had to move out of the home I had lived in for 18 years. Rented from 2015 and then had the opportunity to purchase my home in 22. age of 62. So I'm very proud of being a homeowner here in Jacksonville. But with the income that I do have coming in and all these taxes that are presented to me, it's very hard to maintain a lifestyle that you would like to lead. So I think the governor, what he's proposing is a wonderful thing. And I got my JEA bill in the other day, and I'm kind of terrified to open it. So if anything you can do to help, especially the senior citizens here in this state with property taxes, would definitely most be helpful to us. And thank you for your leadership here in Florida, and thank you for caring about the citizens of the state of Florida.
Absolutely. What's the real estate market look like here in Northeast Florida right now?
It's been a little slower at the beginning of the year. You're starting to see it pick up a little bit for sure.
And is that pretty much just following the interest rate, or what do you think?
I think part of it's just seasonal,
Yeah.
right? The beginning of the year is always a little slower, and as you kick into spring and summer, it starts to pick up a little bit.
Okay. And you live in what part of town?
I live on the north side out by the zoo on Trout River.
Oh, okay. And Blaze, just in terms of overall, I know you're involved in home building. What are you seeing with the economy in Florida? Obviously, we hear these things the media talks about nationally, and then I'm always asking people, well, are you doing poorly? And they're like, no, we're doing good. But it's like, it's anecdote.
Yeah, look, and it's thanks to your leadership and good long-term conservative leadership in the state of Florida, we're always situated better, right? No state income tax. The state is fiscally responsible. It is easy to open up a business here. So the state is in a much better situation, but specifically to real estate and property taxes, we are seeing a little bit of slowing. And some of those are macro issues, and to your point, some of those macroeconomic issues, and some of those are issues where local governments are refusing to cut property taxes. So from a builder's standpoint, I do see people who try to qualify for homes, and then they see what the amount will be with their property taxes, and they're like, I'm sorry, we can't afford this, and they're downsizing, or they just don't become homeowners.
We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It was quite the surprise for a family in Port Charlotte when they learned yesterday, when Louis Prevost learned that his younger brother, Robert, had just been elected as the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. And Fox 13's Kimberly Quizon had the chance to speak with Louis just a little bit ago at his home in Port Charlotte.
I can't put that into words. If you can imagine your wildest fantasy dream coming true, that was probably it. I can't imagine winning like the lottery and becoming a multimillionaire instantaneously would be as exciting as what happened yesterday. It was just mind-boggling, mind-blowing that my little brother was just elected Pope of the Catholic Church, and it's like, oh my God. It still hasn't sunk in all the way. We're still on cloud nine, you know, pins and needles, excitement. Last night there was like, it was so hard to go to sleep, just all the thoughts and the excitement that had built up during the day running through the head, and it's like, you really need to go to, but you can't. And it's just, I don't know. I'm sure at some point it'll finally sink in. We'll be able to relax, talk about it, go, wow. And settle down to a more normal, you know, if you took my blood pressure right now, it's probably spiking pretty high. And they go, oh my God, you're going to die. Because, I mean, it was that kind of a moment, you know. I don't want to say like a punch in the face, but it a sobering, instant awake, oh, wow, my brother is the Pope. Oh my God. How do you react to that? I mean, just looking at the media that's been here trying to get interviews and talk to us, who we're just his brothers, you know, go talk to him. But yeah, no, it's just been incredible. I got to get my feet back on the ground.
So you see the white smoke. What is that moment when you see him coming out on the balcony? Because that's the moment that everybody is looking and waiting and watching.
Is waiting for, yes. There was, the bigger moment was when the first cardinal came out to tell the masses in the world that they've elected a new pope. So when he came out and started his thing, I paid close attention because I know he was going to say the name, and he did the, you know, I can't remember the Latin or he used or the Italian, but he started to say the name, and he got no more than the first three letters out, Rob, and that was it. My mind, I said, I mean, thank God I was sitting down in the bed, and I might have fallen over because I knew right then it's Robert Francis, and he goes Roberto Francisco, and it just kept building. The more he kept saying, you know, his full name, and no, it can't be. What? Oh my God, he's the Pope. Because I can't say we didn't expect it. It's always possible. When he was made cardinal, it's like, wow, he could be the next Pope. And, you know, yeah, sure, right. And it happened. It's like, oh my God, what a shock to the system that my little brother is the Pope. I still can't express in words all the feelings and emotions about it. It was just mind-blowing. You know, you're crying, but it's tears of joy, and that didn't last long, because then when he came out on the balcony to show himself and bless the crowd and say what he had to say, which I didn't understand because my Italian is not what it should be, I suppose. But it was quite the morning, quite early afternoon, and still not recovered from it. It's just phenomenal.
Do any of the memories go back? Because he is your little brother. There's about 5 years age difference between you both?
I believe so, yeah.
Do any of the memories go back to, I mean, you're an older brother, he has another older brother as well. Do any of the memories go back to when he's a little kid?
Oh yeah, a lot. When he was small, I mean, we knew from when he was old enough to talk, walk, start playing, like with me, because he's a little baby. But when he got a sense of who he was, spent a first year or two in grade school, we knew, the family knew, myself, my brother, my parents, he's got a calling. There's something about him. And sure enough, he went in, finished grade school. Rather than go to high school where myself and John went, our middle brother, he went right into the seminary for the Augustinians. And it's like, okay, yeah. So he was serious, because we used to play as kids, you play. He used to play priest. I never played priest. My other, who plays priest? He liked to play priest, and it's like, okay. So we teased him about that, and we teased him about, even as little kids, what do you think, you're the Pope or something like that? And how you just want to be the Pope of everybody, don't you? And we just give him all kinds of grief about, why do you want to play priest? Why do you keep blah blah blah, just teasing. And then he went in the seminary. It's like, okay. And from that point on, obviously, that's been his life. He loves it. He's done very well at it, as evidenced by a group of his cohorts picked him to be the Pope. It's like, it's mind-boggling. How does that happen?
You talked about the emotions. Is one of the emotions thinking about your future with him? Because we know before, as a cardinal, he could probably come visit on vacations and all. Have you thought about that? Is he allowed to visit? Because I know with Pope Francis, he said he was never able to return home.
To go home, right? And that's like the other side of the coin. Yeah, we're all happy for him and the family, and it's like the greatest thing that could happen in the world, right? One of your immediate family members is head of the Catholic Church. Then being Catholic, it's like, wow. But then on the other, and you're happy for him, we're happy, you bounce up and down. But then reality sinks in, and you go, will we ever be able to see him again without, making arrangements far in advance, finding that little window of time that he has available to see his brother? Used to be, we could go to Rome, and he was in his apartment. You go, hey, we're coming. Is that okay? Yeah, come on. Now it's, can we even pick up the phone and call him? I'm sure the Pope will have his phone. I think Francis had a phone. But is that phone direct dial, or are there 5 people that screen the calls before it gets to his cell? I don't know how that would work. But, it'd be like trying to call the president, You can't just pick up the phone and, can I speak to Donald, please? No, it's not going to work. Even at his brother, can I speak to my brother? They're going to go, no, he's busy. You can't just do that. So, yeah, there's a lot of doubt about what's it going to be like going forward. Yeah, we're still brothers, but now he's like father or whatever of the whole church worldwide. He's got a lot of people to be, looking out for, taking care of, shepherding. Does he have time for his old, mean big brother? Who knows?
I tell you what, pretty interesting to hear that perspective from his older brother and about their relationship as a kid. Interesting stuff there, and we'll have more from that interview in our 4 o'clock show as well. And I know if you're watching on Fox Local in Tampa, Fox 13's Kimberly Quizon, we'll have much more coming up later in the shows as well. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Earlier today, Attorney General James Uthmeier spoke in Tampa. He was the keynote speaker at the 2025 Florida Crime Prevention Summit. Talked about a number of things, including the importance of holding scammers accountable, protecting children from online predators, and a number of other things as well. Here's some of what the Attorney General had to say.
The theme of this mission, preventing crime, ties in very closely to my mission as Attorney General. I believe the Office of Attorney General is to protect our state's most vulnerable, protecting our seniors, our elderly, the people that left this state, this country, better for us than they found it. And we've got a lot of them in the state, and we're going to fight like hell to protect them as everybody wants to come in and cheat and steal and scam. If you're getting these text messages about toll fees, please don't click it. It's a fraud. We're trying to crack down. It's like whack-a-mole. Every time we get one, they pop up somewhere else. But we want to protect our seniors and make sure that they are safe and that nobody is taking advantage of them. Our most vulnerable are our children. We have to protect our children. And today we see dangerous people coming after our kids in ways like never before. And that is because of the expansion of technology and the internet, these dang cell phones. We are seeing dozens and dozens of examples just in the last few months that I've been in this job of predators pretending to be other people, deceiving our kids. They get online, they use these applications like Snapchat, and they prey upon our kids. They lure them in, they talk to them, they pretend to be 12-year-olds themselves, and at the end of the day, they start soliciting pictures and even in the worst cases, meetings. We have to protect our kids. We have to educate our kids, we have to empower our kids, and we have to protect our kids. Here in the state, we have placed a great emphasis on education. We were the first state to have fully funded universal school choice to make sure that every student could go to the school that best meets their needs, and that's for every family. And in schools, we've really pushed to make sure the curriculum is not teaching some social agenda, but focused on empowering kids to move on, succeed, and provide for their own families. So we've really focused on the classics, on financial literacy, and on STEM programs that will make sure students can graduate and they have the skills that equip them to move on, succeed, and provide for their families, because there is no greater honor than to move on and provide for a family. And today in Florida, we see a positive trend. The results from our Florida incident-based reporting system show that crime figures dropped last year again, and this is on top of a 50-year crime low. As I've been traveling around and meeting police chiefs and sheriffs, I'm every day going into jurisdictions where they report that for the first time in a long time, they don't have a single homicide to report last year. This is not an accident. This is not a coincidence. This is because of the work that you are doing. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. There's no way to quantify every crime that occurs, but I will tell you this. The statistics on our law enforcement responses are unbelievable. We have the best law enforcement officers in the state. And they will tell you that when they respond to crimes, they are doing their job. They will tell you that they are following their protocols and that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They will tell you they are not heroes, they are just doing their job. Do not let them get away with it. Our law enforcement officers, those of you in this room, thank you for being here. You guys are heroes. You stand in the gap. You stand on the line between chaos and order, between lawlessness and justice. You stand between right and wrong. It was great during COVID as jurisdictions around the country were defunding the police. We had a really good idea. We were getting so many calls and emails from officers in other states, many in California, saying, thank you for standing by law enforcement. We put our lives on the line. We stick our necks out. And to have government officials that don't appreciate that want to defund it, prosecutors that don't want to bring cases, it makes us wonder why we do what we do. Well, so we started our own recruitment and bonus program to bring law enforcement officials into Florida. If they're somewhere else and they're not appreciated, we want them here. And so we've been able to bring in almost 20,000 law enforcement officers from other states through this program. And as a result, we've saved tens of millions of dollars on training and efforts to get new people in. We'll have to probably refocus on that down the road, but the reality is we have the best law enforcement in the country because we understand the importance of our officers. We will be the safest state to raise a family. And that is not a slogan, that is not a bumper sticker, it is a fact. And it is a fact, it is a promise that we are only able to deliver on because of you. Thank you. And you all aren't just responding to crimes, you are preventing them. One example that somebody recently shared with me was the police officers in Sarasota. They saw many underprivileged students in a community who were literally typing up homework and things on cell phones because they did not have computers. And they were getting to school early, trying to find ways to print from cell phones. Officers noticed this problem, so they got together in the community. They stepped in and they secured donations to provide iPads and computers. And that community, since the program was begun, has seen a 38% reduction in crime. That is true results. That's law enforcement going above and beyond. That is not just charity, that is strategy. What you are doing is working. So we got to focus on the kids. They've got more dangers than ever before surrounding them. They need to see leadership. They need to see role models. They need mentorship. And if we can empower them and give them hope to go forward and achieve and provide for others, again, there's no greater gift than to provide for your own family and your own friends. If we can give that to them, we will continue to reduce crime. Let me also include that the people in this room, when hurricanes have come up, have been the first to jump up and help. And we've been hit by a lot over the last couple of years. We pray that maybe this is an easier year, but we have to be prepared for the worst. Our first responders and community leaders here, when others get to run away from disaster, you all have run towards it. Thank you. It's a way of life here in Florida, and if not for you, we would suffer much more harm. So thank you for being there for your communities.
The Attorney General speaking in Tampa earlier today. Going to take one last break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Still have a few more minutes with you here on Fox Local and on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us on this Friday afternoon. The Miami Heat are heading into a pivotal offseason. 83-81 record over the last 2 years. The Heat have lost 8 of their last 9 postseason games as well, so they have some changes to make, and we know the ongoing issues they've had with Jimmy Butler. Those are some of the things that Pat Riley, the team president, addressed at a news conference earlier today.
Let's sort of pick up exactly a year ago where we left off. You sat there and challenged Jimmy Butler to play more games, to maybe watch what he says and concentrate on winning. After that, in December, you issued a statement saying Jimmy Butler would not be traded. You suspended him 3 times after that, and your very players who sat there just a week ago said that greatly impacted their season. One, your thoughts on how you approached it both a year ago, how you approached it during the season, and how much of an impact do you think that overall had on the direction and the type of season we're coming off of?
I don't think what I said last year really was relevant. I simply said softly no. And I'm a person that in all the teams that I did coach, when you lose, you take your loss and you go home, and you're quiet, But there wasn't trolling back in that day, So there's no doubt that what happened with Jimmy had a tremendous impact on our team. There's no doubt about it. So the buck stops with me. I'll take that hit if you want it. What happened during the regular season, I don't want to really discuss. I remember this about Jimmy. I remember the bubble when he was hanging over the scorer's table, exhausted, and trying to win a title. I remember that. I have that in my office, that picture. I remember the exit meeting that we had when we got swept by the Bucks the next year. He wasn't a very happy guy. I don't even know if he came in. Maybe it was maybe a minute. I said, go home or go wherever you go. And then one of my favorite moments with Jimmy was the rebound he had with 9 seconds to go in the 3rd year against Boston in the 7th game here. And I was sitting with Chris, and I remember we're going to win this game, and we're going to play Golden State. He rebounded it on the left side of the court. He dribbled up left-handed. He crossed over to the right side of the court. He got right to his spot, and he raised on a 3. He could have taken Horford, but he probably wouldn't have got a call at that time of the game, especially today, how they're refereeing games. And so I remember I stood up as he was dribbling up. I said, this is going to go in, and we're going to go to the finals again. And he just missed a little bit to the left. And the next year, the play-in and the great run we had to the finals out of the play-in. I think it was 6 games at Denver. And he played his ass off, his heart out for us. And, the last year and a half.
Pat Riley talking about Jimmy Butler and addressing some of the ongoing issues that the Heat have been dealing with. We know they have a lot of work to do in this offseason to make that team better going forward. Well, thanks for joining us here on this Friday afternoon. We'll see you on